people really need to understand that men play a vital role in relationships, and not only in their current one with their kids, but the ones their kids are going to have with their partners. You have to be internally healed before you can bring another relationship in there, or you have to be able to be healing in the same pathway and understanding, or it does not work. Younger people don't stay married longer time. It took me 35 years to go through it the first time. I don't want to do it again.
Welcome back, everyone, to a new episode of Doing It Raw, Relationship Goals.
Welcome back.
Season 2, episode 4.
Let's not start counting because then we always say something wrong.
Episode, whatever's in the title. That's that episode. We just know it's season 2.
Maybe didn't you learn from the 50 days? Like, oh yeah, on date 23 and it's like 24.
We knew the first 10 and the last 10. The middle part is where we could.
Yeah. So let's not. We just know we're on season 2. Yeah. I know that we have today our second guest of the season. Last week we had our first.
Yeah, and we have a warrior who is here to join us to talk more about relationships, and he has a ton of value to add. And we were looking forward to this since he's been booked for today's dates a month ago.
I think so, but honestly, like, he doesn't know this. I was like, I hope that he gets on this podcast, because I've heard some of the stuff that he says, and even though his main thing is not relationships, like, I love some of the things that he talks about within his own relationships. So
because it still applies to relationships,
yeah,
to a certain extent. Yeah.
So it's exciting.
So welcome to the show, Daryl.
Thank you guys for having me, and love the title. Love what you guys do, doing it raw and real. It's fantastic, and as I was telling you earlier, something that truly needed in relationships in general today, but specifically marriages. So, kudos for you guys stepping out and doing this. Not only as a power couple, but to benefit others. So, thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you so much for being here and agreeing to be on the podcast. I know that I don't think we've ever met like in person. Yeah. But you're part of the Prospera family as well. So that's how we know you. And that's I've seen you talk, I think maybe once. I'm not sure where, because I've got into events and I forget, but I love that you just have so much wisdom, and you're just this softness to you. It's crazy that you can say very strong things with a very soft tone, because that's how my husband is. Like, he can be very strong, but he's very soft, like the way he says it. So I can swallow it a lot better.
Yeah. My wife would prefer I do more of the softness with her when I'm speaking those words as well. I still have to consciously work on softening it, in our own relationship. But thank you. I appreciate that. When you have lived a lot of life and you've seen a lot of things, sometimes, we don't always say it in a softer tone. But my wife says all the time, it's not what you say, it's how you say it to me that I hear it differently. So I'm trying to remind myself. My dad used to say, wag more, bark less. And I'm trying to implement that as a philosophy. So thank you for saying that. But yeah, I think when you're speaking truth, when you're my age, it's easier to remember because you don't have to remember what lie you told. But when you're speaking truth, then it's easier to speak it softer because you're confident in what you're saying.
Yeah.
You don't feel like you have to shout out your opinion because you're trying to prove something. You're very assured in what you're saying, so you can kind of say it a little softer. So
that's beautiful. Yeah, the way that I interpret what you said is lies are loud, but truth is soft.
Correct. Yeah, I think when you're trying to force or shout or defend, it's not as powerful as if you're, speaking with the confidence and the truth of what you're actually saying. Now, your truth could be right or wrong, but you're still saying it in a fashion that it can now be heard, and then the discussion can happen, in relationships. And you guys have been together for quite a while. My wife and I have been together for 11 years, but communication is vital. And not only communication, but understanding, because we all bring a filter to what we're hearing. And so, you can say the words, but if my filter is skewing them, then I'm not, we're talking, which is communication, but it's not understanding, which is what enhances the relationship. So you have to be able to not only communicate, but hear and understand to bring that all together. So.
Exactly. And I'm sure that's something that you were not born with, right?
I was born talking. I came out of the womb telling the doctor how to do his job.
Exactly.
I grew up in a tumultuous household, as anyone who's heard my story. And so I learned really quick some defensive mechanisms. And because I at one point was homeless and living out of my car and doing this, also, growing up, I was in leadership programs. I was an Eagle Scout. I was firstborn. So I did learn communication early. I did learn it as a survival technique. I learned how to, like when I was homeless, I was having to talk to strangers to let me spend a night on their couch so that I could shower and go look for work the next day. And without the ability to communicate, I would have never been able to do that. And so, innately, many people are not communicators. Somewhere along the line, I was blessed with the ability to do that. And but again, it is like a skill of any others. You have to hone it. You have to work at it. The key to a relationship or communication, whatever, is really listening to hear what is and is not being said. And that has become one of my superpowers. I'm just as good at hearing what you're saying as what you're not saying. And so I have developed that skill to be better at communicating in general. So.
Exactly. That is also something I can relate to on my end, because that's something that we struggled with at the very beginning, and until maybe 5-6 years ago. 5-6 years ago, that's when our communication really started being more fruitful, a lot better. And a lot of it had to do with me being able to lead our marriage in the first place, and with that came me being able to read between the lines as to what she was saying, because they give these examples in generic like marriage counseling type deal, where it's the problem is that he doesn't pick up the socks on the floor, where I have to tell him to put the toilet seat down and all that stuff. That is not really the problem. The problem is I don't feel heard, and then these things that you do make me feel that way. But unfortunately, that is not what is being communicated. That is not what the wife is literally saying, outside of like, you just need to pick that up and then it'll be fine. The underlying issue is I do not feel heard by you. I do not feel seen, and I don't feel understood. This is why it's important for you to pick up the socks. And also, of course, on our part, it's the lack of understanding, like you mentioned. That's the second part of communication, is listening and understanding and looking to understand. That's why a big piece.
I was going to say, no, the issue is that you didn't read my mind.
Right.
I guess it was.
And the problem with that statement is that the mind changes in like 30 seconds and a nanosecond. So even when we think we've read your mind, it's suddenly like changed your mind anyway. So it is a hard line for men to walk. The thing that you're saying, Moses, is women are, and I'm painting with a broad brush, so forgive me, anyone listening, but women are innately wanting to have security, and that security and that safety and that feeling loved, seen, and respected by their partner. They're not looking to be lorded over or dictated or less than. They're looking for true partnership, which means safety and understanding. And men by nature are hunter gatherers and women are nesters. And in many relationships, when the wife is saying pick up the socks and do this and do that, the man is innately hearing his mother, and he's innately trying to, as a man, get away from his mother and be a man standing on his own. So when he hears that from his wife, he hears his mother, and that drives an irritant in there that isn't even about the wife. It's about your relationship with your parents. And so if you're not aware of that, you're mad that she's nagging, and she's mad that you're not doing as you're told. And just even saying that, doing as you're told, doing what I've asked you to do, and she may ask you 10 times, and in your mind, you're like, yeah, I'll get to that. Not on your time frame, but on mine. Right. And when they don't coincide, then you get these arguments that have nothing to do with the socks or any of that other stuff. It has to do with what did we hear the other person say, and whose voice did we hear it in? You didn't hear it in Bree's voice. You heard it in your mom's voice. Right.
Yeah, so, I understood that. It's crazy that you're saying this because I love it. I understood that the moment that I realized that he never listened to his mom, and that every time his mom would call him, like literally we would be in the living room, and every time she would call him, he'd be like, pretend to sleep. Yeah. And when I saw that and I realized like, okay, like I'm doing the same thing to him that his mom is doing. He doesn't listen to his mom. And when I stopped, like, you didn't pick up your socks, this and that, like I asked you to do the oil 6 months ago. He just does it on, like, it is like on his time, right? Like his time frame when he makes it a priority. But to me, it's like, if he doesn't get it done, that's on him. Like I'm not going to put that on my plate anymore. Like, it's not up to me anymore. Like, he knows he's a man, he's an adult. He knows what he has to do. When he does it, that's on him.
Yeah. And when you stop being mothered, you feel more respected as a man, and she feels more heard as a woman. And now the communication you were talking about can actually happen,
Exactly.
So,
yeah, you give a great example, because in that example in my head, I don't know if you agree with this, but both are right in the sense, like, don't be nagging at me, but at the same time, she doesn't have to tell you to pick up the socks. Like, you're a grown man.
Right.
It's I guess in that point, it's the one that they both technically need to grow, but one has to lead in that growth. The reason I bring that up is because one big thing that my wife, at the very beginning, when I think we first moved in together, when we would go shopping for groceries, I don't know why I was the one that was dependent on bringing the card, but for some reason I was the one that was supposed to bring the card, and I would forget it often. So of course her motherly side came out, like, why are you forgetting it? Like, we drove all the way this year and all that stuff. And I would feel bad. I wouldn't retaliate because technically, yeah, I guess it's my fault. In my head, I'm like, well, why are you telling me? Like, I don't know when we agreed to this. That would be the one.
Again, you needed to read my
mind. However, in my part, I'm like, okay, if she's not going to stop, then I need to change something. I'm the only one that can control me. So it's one of those things where it's kind of hard you basically have to swallow a pill that you don't want to swallow. But if you don't, then that's just going to create more friction and more tension and just lead to chaos, essentially. Is that something that you probably experience in your previous relationship as well, as far as the communication goes?
Yeah, I think, I'm fortunate, I met my current wife, my last wife, later in life. And I didn't get married my first time until I was 35 or 36. I still had a lot of things that I was trying to overcome. And quite frankly, if I'm being truthful, um, I wasn't internally healed enough to
Mhm.
even be in that marriage in the first place, and nor was she. If I was as healed then as I am now, I wouldn't have even dated her, let alone married her,
Mhm.
because I was trying to fix something in me by bringing another person into my life to heal that. And it didn't work. It caused more chaos and more damage. And there was no communication, there was only fighting.
Mhm.
And after that relationship ended, I still spent several more years on my own. And I wasn't even looking for another relationship when God brought me my current wife, because I was in no way in position to take that on again. And having gotten married later in life, that was my only point of reference. It's arguing, it's fighting, it's bad, it's, what I don't want to. It took me 35 years to go through it the first time. I don't want to do it again.
Mhm.
Yet later in life, when I was further down the healing journey, he brought me someone who now I can communicate with, and someone I can, find common ground in, and we don't stop arguing, but we correct it sooner, and we grow from it faster. And what used to take, a week to resolve now takes hours to resolve. You know, what used to be minuscule no longer becomes mountainous, because we have that better understanding from our own healing journey. And you know, you guys are you're really an anomaly, because you got married young and you've stayed married a long time.
Mhm.
In your profession, you've seen um, younger people don't stay married longer time,
Yep.
because and I'm a psychology major, so a lot of my stuff goes back to the brain. Your brain isn't even fully developed till you're 25 years old. And your 20s, you're trying to discover who I am outside the house, who I am in my career, who I am in life in general. And if two people are trying to find that path for themselves and they're not aligned in that direction, well, yeah, they're going to come together, and then they're going to keep crossing and go, away. So what you guys have attained is phenomenal, because you did it at a young age when most young marriages don't succeed. So you have to be internally healed before you can bring another relationship in there, or you have to be able to be healing in the same pathway and understanding, or it does not work. And communication is vital. And one of the problems is that men don't talk about this stuff. Women want to yak about it all day long. Men don't talk about it. We bury it, we suppress it, we hide it. Oh, we're good, right? Well, oh, we're good just pushes it down and allows it to boil over, because then when you do have a fight, all that stuff that you were suppressing, couldn't say, didn't want to say, should have said, just spews out in the most worst way, and that's detrimental to the healing journey in the partnership. So, I always think that people should go on a long cross country trip in the same
Mhm.
car, because you find out how you are when you're side by side traveling, and you should live together for a period of time before you get married, because dating where you can say good night and then go home to your own
Mhm.
place is different than saying good night and still having that person around. And if you can survive that, well, then maybe now marriage can be a possible lasting relationship, right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
And it's funny you bring up that point, because right now what we came to realize at the beginning of this year, to make relationship as simple as possible and not so complex. um, we broke it down that you have to essentially be very very good at three things, And that doesn't mean that once you arrive, you're arrived. Like, you have to constantly work at these 3 things. And the first part was, you have to be a good partner, you have to be a good friend, and you have to be a good lover. And essentially how relationships start, it's with a friendship. You start off by going on dates, like you mentioned, and figuring out if there's any chemistry or connection there. And if there's a deep enough connection or chemistry, then you move on to being lovers. You want to expand that connection and kind of be more intimate and so on and so forth. Be special friends. Be only there for each other. And then you want more of that. So you were like, let's move in together and let's build a life together. And that's the partner comes in. But what we find often is that the partner takes over and the friendship gets forgotten. Meaning the partner is the one, like, can we live together? Like you mentioned with the road trip. Can we get through this cross-country road trip together without fighting? Or if we do, how do we get through those fights? Am I going to be the one driving? Do you expect me to be the one driving most of the trip? Because what I'm thinking in my head is we half and half it kind of deal. But if there's no communication, like we've been talking about, if there's no agreement, then that's where kind of you butt heads with each other. And that's where you truly find out. Because we had this conversation, like, do you think couples should move in together before getting married? I am kind of biased towards like yes and no, only because of what you just mentioned. That road trip, that's where you truly find out who they are. Do they, from the smallest things, from do they pee on the toilet seat or do they pick it up and clean it? Do they leave the socks on the floor? Do they wash up? Because yes, dating, when you have a mutual place that you're going to meet, you know the time, you know the place, you know what kind of, you can kind of formulate what you can expect. So you can prepare for it ahead of time. You can dress up, so on and so forth. Brush your teeth, even if it's once a week, and that's the only time you brush your teeth. You won't know that until you're in the same room together, living and having to get from point A to point B as much as possible. And living with each other every day, so on and so forth. Because when we started, it wasn't like that. We were very much in separate paths. It was also something similar where we were not looking for each other. I was going over here and she was going over here. And I I clearly told her, like, I'm going over here if you want to come. If not, then sayonara.
So then she was like, I'm going this way, and I was going this way. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm going this way.
I'm willing to turn. But even on the road trip thing, you know, how does the partner handle unexpected, you know, things, you know, a detour? How do they, you know, handle something that's not going, like if you're on the map and you're going here, but now you suddenly have to go over here? How do they handle that change? How do they handle something that is unexpected or unavoidable or stressful in the moment? You know, how are they with time? If you have to be somewhere at a specific time, are they there at that specific time, or are they just kind of on their own time, right? Little things like that are the things you find out. And those are the things that matter in a relationship, because those are things that you're going to be confronted with every single day in your relationship. So how do you guys navigate that? What do you do? And, you know, Bree, you were on your own map journey, and then you decided to take your own pivot and join his journey, right? Or at least the path of his journey, right? And he didn't demand it. He just said, okay, here's where I'm going. You're welcome to come along. And the same, you know, for you. Okay, I'm wanting to come along. What does that look like? You know?
Yeah.
So those are things you don't find out just by dating. You know, there's, name those 3 things that you said for the relationship.
Yeah, you have to be great at 3 things: being a partner, being a friend, and being a lover.
And 2 of those require for yourself as well as the partner you're in with, because you have to do those things internally before you can be good at them externally. You know, and we started this off talking about communication, and in order to be a good lover partner to your partner, it takes good communication. What do they like? What do they want? How do they respond? That's not just like, yeah, you can go to a library and read a book on sex, but that doesn't tell you how to be a good lover to your partner. That requires communication.
Exactly.
Right? So I think you have it nailed, you know, really well on at least the basics. You know, what does it take to have a lasting relationship? And how long have you guys been together now?
We've been together 13, 13 years.
About to be 13.
Yeah, 13 years ago we met.
So
Yeah,
you're
we've
doing
been married for 8, so
Mhm.
yeah. So you're doing something right, right?
I mean,
Hope we are.
yeah, I mean, we
So far,
like, yeah,
looks like it.
I think obviously it takes a lot of growth.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of growth wanting to be better because, yeah, you can be in a relationship for a long time, but that doesn't mean that the relationship is great for that long time, right?
Mhm.
Right.
So it took a lot of growth from the both of us and a lot of grace and kindness to each other because, like we mentioned, the whole mother thing, right? I had to change that part of I was already a mom when I met him. So I was already in mom mode most of the time.
Yeah.
So he came into the picture and now I'm like mom mode with my own partner.
Yeah.
So I had to realize, okay, do I want to be his mom or do I want to be his wife? And it was like, yeah, I want to be his wife and a wife shouldn't be a mom, right? So I had to change that part. I had to change the way I communicated because communication is important, but the way you say things, like you mentioned off the recording, like your wife is the way that you tell me things is important. And to me, it was more yelling than like actually trying to get my like what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
So I had to grow in that sense as well. And I mean, Moises had to kind of grow up.
Yeah, I did.
He was pretty young, so
Yeah.
his brain wasn't developed yet.
But
I
you
did.
mentioned a really important thing, being in mom mode, and I think when couples have a child or bring children into the relationship, the focus becomes so parent centric that they forget that it has to be partnership centric as well. You know, my dad taught me, that his job was to make us sustainable on our own outside of the house. And if your children are sustainable outside of the house, that means eventually your house is just going to still have the two people that started the house.
Mhm.
So if you lose sight of those two people when it's empty nested, now you're back to those two people. I know tons of people who've been married 20 plus years and the kids went away to college and suddenly they're getting divorced because they didn't know how to continue to talk to each other. Everything was centered around the children, parent focused, and they didn't remember to sustain the partnership. So when the children were gone, all they had was each other and they didn't know how to handle that anymore. So I think, when you do bring that extra dynamic of children into the mix, it's really important to also have date night, to have alone time, to have time where the kids are not a part of the communication. And then when you're out on your date or out on your experience or having your parent alone weekend, it's not always talking about school and the kids and the babysitter. It's about refocusing on each other to keeping that part alive. And Moses, you said something about, being friends. And I've always been under the impression that it's as equally to be a friend with your partner as it is to be in love with your partner. Because in my experience, love fades and sometimes die, but the level of love changes. And if you're not friends with that partner when it's on a low trajectory of the love, the friendship is what's going to help you rekindle it to get it back to the higher level of love. If all it is love, well, when that fire goes out, now you're done. And how many people come to you in your practice that are in danger of losing their relationship because they forgot to be friends?
Mhm. All of them.
Everyone.
we treat our friends way better than we treat ourselves or our
Mhm.
partners sometimes.
Exactly.
And if your partner is your friend, then that level of care goes to them as well. So when these people come to you and they say, man, we're in trouble, what'd you do with your friendship? Because
Yeah.
my wife and I love each other, but we don't always like each other, and you guys as married couples know what that means, right?
Yep.
So you have to have that level of friendship to get back to putting it all back on the table.
So what kind
So,
of things do you and like your wife do to keep that friendship alive?
we hold hands a lot.
Beautiful.
Even when we're asleep, like we'll fall asleep holding hands. Or you know, we go on walks together and we talk, and we go really deep on our conversations. Now we're older, so we don't have the children at home to be a part of that anymore. But we take time to really be interested in what the other person is interested in, you know, because our interests aren't always aligned, but because the other person is there taking interest in that, it keeps that friendship, and we have the deep conversations. You know, we don't just talk about the sky being blue. You know, we talk about the number of stars in the sky. Like it's more than just surface level day-to-day stuff. And we really make time to date still, you know. So all of us kind of want to be pursued, right? And if you continue that pursuit, like we'll dance in the kitchen when there's no music playing. Like we'll chase each other around the house like kids, you know, just play. We bring joy and playfulness still into the relationship. So we do a lot of things to just, life is tough, marriage is tough, relationships are tough, but we try to keep some level of lightheartedness still in it so that we can remain friends and friendly, which makes all the rest of the stuff easier.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
We do similar stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything you mentioned, I was like, yeah, we do that. That's exactly like when I hear those things, I'm like, that's exactly it. Why is it so hard to understand? But then going back to psychology, you know, people's past come into play, so on and so forth, and they need to heal. And all of that comes into battle when it comes to a relationship, because now you're trying to deal with your own stuff, but also you have to deal with the other person's stuff. And if you're essentially two lost puppies coming together trying to figure things out, then of course chaos is gonna happen. And that's where we find a lot of relationships. That's where they're at. Essentially, they don't know that, like, hey, the relationship you came from, whether it was good or bad or lack thereof, affected you to a certain degree. Like for example, with our upbringing, we both came from broken households. I already came to her, already telling her, I'm never gonna get married. There's gonna be no paper that I signed. I'm not gonna go to church and be like I do. If you want to be together, we're gonna stay together, and that's it. Fortunately, I grew up and healed, but that's because of my background, right? And then we had that discussion and so on and so forth. And on her part, it was very much, you know, a bad relationship with men, which also led to, or kind of watered, the motherly side of her always wanting to be in control of, you do what you must do, what I need to do because I know best. But only because the man's side wasn't fulfilled on her part. So I had to kind of force myself. Earlier I was laughing when she was talking and you were mentioning about the communication, because I literally had to put a book down and tell her, read that. It's called Skills with People. And I told her, read that. This was after her giving me a talk or a sermon or whatever it may be, when we were dating, and like, read that. And she read it and she was like, oh, that's what he's telling me to do.
But you're right on, because if her filter is men are bad, men treat me bad, no matter what you say or do is going to be filtered through that. And if your filter is mommy nagging, women pick up my clothes and do my laundry, then that's your filter. And those filters have to be broken. Like, your 95% of your day is run on autopilot. And if you don't change the program that's running your autopilot, then your results are not going to ever change. And part of what you did for her with the book is to help change her autopilot, to give her a new program to run on, as opposed to what filters she was already doing it on. And if your relationship with your father was not good, then your view of men is not good. And if your relationship with your mother was nagging and controlling, then your relationship with women don't stand much of a chance. Also, people downplay the roles that fathers play in the household with both the boys and the girls. Because if the boy doesn't grow up with a father figure who's actually doing it right, treating the mom with respect, treating people in general with care and love, then they don't have that as a basis. And if women don't have a father who was there for them, or abandoned their family, or treated their mother bad and them bad, then they grow up with a bad filter. Like, people really need to understand that men play a vital role in relationships, and not only in their current one with their kids, but the ones their kids are going to have with their partners.
Yeah.
It's so underrated and so sad because it's so avoidable.
I'm so grateful to you for speaking up and saying that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, in a world full of women are gonna hate me, but in a world full of feminism, it's like they feel like men aren't needed in the household. And I'm telling you, because I felt the same way when I had my son. It was just me, him and I, right, in our apartment. I mean, I was working in the medical field, I was going to school, so it was like, I don't need a man. Like, I can provide for myself, take care of my kid, like things like that. And later on in our relationship, as he met my son when he was 3. And as he got older, I realized how much damage I did as a single mom. That I mothered him way too much, that he, like, it was so hard for him to do things for himself, to be more independent, to, I don't know, there was just things that I knew that he did, like, he learned that came because of me. And I had to, at some point when he started becoming a teenager, he's 16 now, and he would tell me, like, you need to like, Mama Bear needs to step down, because our son is gonna struggle in life if you continue to do this to him. And it was the hardest thing, Daryl. Like, it was the hardest. And I saw it, and I was like, oh my gosh, now, like, I'm like, nobody, like, go
But
talk to dad.
I can, like, my wife, her situation was similar to yours, Bree. She was married, they had a child, the son grew up, but eventually that relationship ended, so it was just mom and son. And she has, even though our son will be 35 in a few months, she still has that same mama bear protective mode, because it is truly, that mama bear is the truth. Like, when you look at bear cubs, it's the mom who's there. The dad's out wandering doing what he wanted, right? It's the mom who's protecting the cubs. It's the mom who's there for survival. It's the mom feeding, right? So even with my wife, I have had to help guide her back from that, even as a young adult. And I joke with her all the time, I'm going to take away your helicopter license, because you're just, you're helicopter parenting way too much. And if we don't give our children a bar to raise to, they will never raise to it. My first wife had 3 kids when I entered their life, and being who I was, they cleaned, they cooked, they took care of themselves, they picked up their socks, they did all this. And we would go to their friend's house, and their friends' parents would be like, well, how do you get your kids to do that? I mean, what do you mean, how do I get them to do that? It's a bar that's set, it's an expectation that's in the house.
It's a standard.
it's a standard, so they're going to do it. Like, how do I get them to do it? I told them they're going to do it. Right. And that's the other thing that parents, I know that you're talking more about relationships, but parenting is a part of that. Parents too often make threats that they never follow up on. And then their kid knows how far to push the boundaries, how far not to push the boundaries. Like, when you hear the belt clearing the belt loops, okay, your boundary is way too far, and it should never get to that point before they start like listening to you. One of the things that I'm key on, because my father, who was also my stepfather, instilled on me, is that your word is your bond, even when you're talking to your kid. So if, like, I remember my stepson, he was 11 at the time. We went to church, and I said, be at the car at this time or we're leaving. And after the service, they got to play while the adults were talking a little bit. And then at the time, the rest of us were at the car, and I was starting to leave. And my ex-wife was like, you can't leave. He's not here yet. And I said, yes, I can, because I told him I was going to. And I left, and he had to walk 4 miles home, but he never missed my car ever again, because he knew that what I said was what was going to happen. And that's the same in a relationship with your wife. If you say it's going to happen, it has to happen, so that she can trust that your word is your bond. It's part of feeling safe. If my wife tells me X, Y, or Z, I know damn straight it's going to be X, Y, or Z, because her word is her bond. Doesn't matter what it's on. And it instills safety. It feels like a voice that I can trust, because she's not going to blow smoke. She's not going to say stuff off the top of her head. What she says is what's going to happen, and vice versa. And Bree, you want safety and comfort in the relationship. Well, if Moses is just over there telling you a bunch of hooey and never follows up on it, you're not going to feel safe in that relationship, because you don't know what part of him you can trust or not. And so I think it all factors in together, in my humble opinion, so
100%. And when we started, I don't know if it was this podcast, but another one, I mentioned the reason why relationships are so important is because they're literally the future of humanity. We all came from a relationship, no matter what. And again, that relationship affected us to a certain extent. It's funny how you mentioned about standards and the kids. Something that I think I saw it yesterday, that kind of like a tip for kids, that like, hey, when your parents are educating or disciplining you, listen, because life will do the same, but with less love. And I'm like, man, that is so true. And that's what I tell my kids, especially our oldest, that is about to be an adult in about a year and a half. Like, dude, right now is the safest time and place for you to mess up, for you to try and to grow, because once you're 18, you consider an adult, and believe me, you will still learn the same lessons, but without the safety net. Right now, you can rely on mom and dad to be there, but again, once you have to build your own life, it's like, it's gonna go from like, hey, are you okay, to like, are you okay? Okay, go now. Let's go. Get back up, because you can't slow down. And of course, we couldn't get to that point unless I communicated with my wife and let her know exactly, hey, we have to be on the same page on how we raise our kids. Because if we're not, then she's gonna be doing what she feels right to do.
Mama bear.
Yeah. And I'll be kind of battling two worlds, and then our kids, that causes confusion, and that's also a resemblance of the relationship. And then they grow up, they'd have their own marriages and relationships, and they're like, well, this is what I grew up in. We always disagree, and we kind of separate, and we only last for 5 years, and I guess that's just normal. But it's not normal. It's actually the opposite. That's actually not the normal thing.
And if we can go back a little bit to what you said about, like you saying something, and what you say is what you do, right? And I love that. I love that you say that, because again, because a lot of, kids our age and younger have grown with single mothers. like we are very lenient. Like if we say something like, like, okay, if you don't finish your food, you're not gonna have ice cream. They didn't finish the food, but okay, go ahead and have ice cream, right? And you as men, like if men start doing that in their homes, in their own relationship, in their own family, I feel like the foundation of that family and the stability is way better, because then it's not like, I love what you did, even though in this time, like, people would be like, how could you
Mhm.
how could you do that, Daryl? That's horrible, like,
Yeah.
this and that, right? But they don't understand that we're kind of building the next generation in the future. And the more lenient that we are with our kids, the less they're gonna do as they grow up. They're not gonna keep their word. Like, they're gonna be showing up late everywhere, like, they're gonna say things and not do those things. So I understand that, and I love that you said that, because we need it. Like our generation needs it so bad, because we see it happen all the time, where there's fathers that they just don't care anymore, right? And
Well,
they don't follow up anymore. They don't raise that standard. It's like whatever the mom says.
but that also creates a division within the relationship if you are in a partnership raising kids, because then the kids learn how to play mom and dad against each other.
Exactly.
And then there's a division already. And then there's an underlying resentment that never gets talked about. I hate the way you're freaking parenting. I hate how strict you are. I hate how lenient you are. It's never talked about, but it's underlying, and it creates more of a rift within the partnership, because it's a factor in how we perceive that other person. And the longer we perceive that other person with negativity, the more it causes bigger problems in the rest of the relationship. My daughter, who was 2 at the time that I came into her life, um, she knows that I'm someone 25 years later that she can count on no matter what, because she knew my word is my bond. She saw me leave her brother. Like, I didn't have to tell her to be in my car, because she saw me leave her brother, right? She knew dad says, here's what happens, right?
Yep.
But it created a bond with us, because she could trust me. She could trust what I was saying. I was safe in my word. Even when it was a word she didn't want to hear, she knew that it was the truth and that it was genuine. And if we only relent to keep the peace, what is our child learning? How to manipulate, how to not take responsibility. They're learning communication, but they're learning how to manipulate that communication
Exactly.
to benefit what they want instead of what's right. And kids, they're always going to rail against, you're going to hear slam doors, and you're going to hear, the I hate yous and blah, blah, blah. But what they take comfort is that there's boundaries, that they know where they are. And by nature, we're always going to push the boundaries, but we know where they are. Because if no was no yesterday, but it's yes today, well, there's no boundary.
Yeah.
I can't trust my parents because I don't believe what they said. There's no boundary. But if you have a boundary when it comes to the small stuff, they know that it expands to the big stuff, and you have less problems with the big stuff, because they know that, a sideways glance means a sideways glance, right? It doesn't just mean, oh, I can have ice cream later. I can't even tell you how many cold peas and vegetables that I sat in all night long looking at, because my mom said, eat it. You will eat it before you leave this table. And I learned really that they're better warm than they are cold. You learn the boundaries, and it's the same with your partner. Like, the communicate, and everything you said today goes back to good communication, right?
100%.
And I trust that my mom is going to, and obviously I'm not a woman, so I can't speak to this part. can only see what my sisters had with their view on it. But my relationship view is, does my mom trust me enough that she taught me well enough to do it on my own?
Mhm.
Or do I always have to be tethered to her teat? No, I don't. Sometimes she taught me that what she taught me allows me to stand on my own. And Moses, you're right. This is the time to make those mistakes, because the world isn't going to be as forgiving as your parents. But if you don't even know, like, go back to when your baby was a toddler, right? And learning to crawl. And then suddenly they stood and they had their hand on the couch and they were too afraid to let go of the couch. And then suddenly, they let go of the couch and they fell. Well, if the mom is running over there right away to make sure that the child is okay and everything's fine, the kid's always going to be afraid because they're looking to you for their reaction. And if your reaction is, good, you fell, now get back up, then they're going to have the confidence to get back up no matter what they've fallen from. But if they've taken their hand off the couch and they fall and mom is rushing over there to pick them up, oh, I'm supposed to be hurt. Wah, I'm hurt, right? Because that's the cue they get from the parents. And it has to be communicated. It's okay to try. It's okay to fail. Continue to do it. Oh, look at, now you're running. Oh, look at, now you're riding your bike without the training wheels. Right? It's the same in everything we do, but it starts with how we communicate that to the child, to our partner. Moses, you didn't do the dishes. Guess what? They're still there and you get to do them tomorrow. Great. I'll do them tomorrow. Oh, Moses, you didn't do the dishes. How come you didn't do the dishes? Moses, damn it, do the dishes now. Oh, crap. That's a whole different dynamic, right?
Yeah.
Now it's not okay to leave a dirty spoon in the sink because I'm going to get yelled at by mom, right?
Yeah. This, what you're mentioning, it's I love it because it comes to the communication between the parents, right? And like, for example, there's this thing that we have, that when we take our kids to the doctor, and if they're gonna get a shot that we approve of, then we've talked about it, and it's like, okay, like, you go, because if I go, my reactions are not very good. Like, it will make them cry. It will make them be like, I need my mommy. When he goes, it's like, you're okay, you'll be okay. Like, he's calm about it. He can talk them through it. So if he can be there, like, he's there. It's like, okay, you go, I'm gonna go set up the next appointment. Because like, it's very important, the reactions that we have when something happens to them or they get hurt or whatever, it kind of like leads the way of like how they should react when that happens to them.
Mm-hmm.
And if we overreact, then they overreact. And that goes into adulthood, that they start overreacting for like the littlest things that happen to them. And it's like, oh, my life is over now. Or,
They have an adult tantrum.
Yeah, they have an adult tantrum. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I don't see Moses laying in aisle 2 kicking and screaming because you couldn't have the chips. Right? You just walk over him and go to aisle 3.
No, I grew up Hispanic, and I don't know how much you know about Hispanic household, but if I ever did that, I would.
Yeah.
I would learn quickly to never do it again.
The funniest thing is he was so young, still, like, I think maybe 20, when we went to Disneyland with him. And my son, he was what, like 6?
5.
He was 5, and he had the biggest tantrum, and he like scratched me. And I felt so defeated as a mom, right? And we were like just dating. We weren't even living together. And he literally got him and told him, you don't do that to your mom. Yeah. And that, I think in that moment, I was like, whoa, like I didn't even know what to do, because I was like, that is awesome, but that's my baby. So it's like a confliction in my head. And I was just like, you know what, like, I'm just going to let it happen, because I've just been like scratched by this boy, and I can't handle it. But it's insane. Like at such a young age, he was already like, teaching my son, like, hey, nah. And now that my son is 16, there's times that he gets this little attitude with mom. And as soon as he hears that walking, he's like, oh, I'm sorry, mom. I'm sorry, mom. Sorry, mom.
I would imagine, and I think all teenagers, regardless of gender, have that moment when the stricter of the parents is in earshot. Things are different. And I think part of that is goes back to the relenting on the little stuff, right? Because you're telling your child one thing, but they know that you're not going to stick to it anyway. So now it becomes a debate. Now, how can I wear my parent down? They're already working hard. They're already doing multiple jobs. They're already taking care of the house. They're already exhausted. If I just wear them down a little bit, I can get away with it. But when the stricter of the two parents comes by, they know there's no game plan. It's like that, right? So I think when you talk to your clients, how many of the issues could have been resolved if the parents would have been on the same page about parenting?
Oh yeah, man, especially the ones that are parents. The issues are the parenting, and one is being more lenient, one is being a little bit more strict, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's again coming together, realizing like, hey, we're actually here to work. We want the same thing for our kid. We're just going about it in a different way. We're not communicating about it. And oftentimes it's like, I'm against you and you're against me, when in reality is, how can we still kind of formulate those two views, but together, in the sense that like, hey, sometimes I do have to be strict, and I understand that sometimes you have to be the soft one to be there. Like both are very nurturing and needed for the child. It's just a matter of communicating when and knowing best when to practice each and every one of those. Because I understand on my part, it's like not every single time do I have to be strict. Sometimes I do need to be soft. And on her part too, not all the time does the kid need a hug. Sometimes like, because let's say, for example, we tell our kids one time to go ahead and stop, and then they fall and then they mess up, so on and so forth. I understand that her taking over and being nurturing, but if it's after 5 times, it's like, we already told you 5 times. You asked for the pain that you're dealing with right now. Mom is not going to be there to nurture you. Like now it's my turn to like, stop. Like you're going to hurt yourself even more. So yeah, a lot of couples do come with that. And it's a lot of like, there's just lack of communication and thinking that they're against each other. But in reality, all they are confused in is how can we make those 2 point of views come together and actually work.
Yeah, and the biggest tool that we have for those moments, like when there's moments that we know that, especially our teenager right now, and now like our 9-year-old that we're having to have conversations with, like we know that we need to talk about it before we go into the conversation so that we can both be on the same page. Because then if you don't do that and you go into the conversation, then there's confliction, and then now it's like against each other, and then the child is seeing that. So we've learned, you know what, let's talk about it, let's agree what is going to be said, what's going to be my role, what's going to be your role, and then we go into the conversation. And that has like helped so much because they see that we're in the same page, so now they can't try to like manipulate one of us.
And as someone whose mom always yelled and always screamed, and that's a trait that I picked up when I was trying to parent my stepchildren, unfortunately. And then I have my stepdad who rarely ever raised his voice, but when he did, it was like, you're in trouble. And as I healed and I wished I would have known this when I had the kids in my house and under my care, but his bark more or bark less, wag more theory meant a lot, because if you if everything is something that you're yelling about, then they tune you out. But if you, as Moses says, if you have that soft time, every issue, every disappointment, every failure is not this massive thing, and you bring it with the softness. When it is time to bring it with the loud, now they pay more attention because it's rare in your house, not common in your house. And when it's common in your house, they just tune you out and find an escape. When it's rare in your house, then they perk up and pay attention. And I wish that was something that I would have learned earlier in my parenting skills, but it carries over into my partnership skills with my wife. If every time we have a disagreement, I'm yelling, she's only going to tune me out. But if I only raise my voice on the times where it's really different, then that's an attention grabber, right? Because not everything needs to be at a higher level. So those are things that we learn in the household as a child that we carry through into a life, and then we take into the next partnership. So you're right. We are raising the next generation with what we're doing. And, the way you guys are doing it, you're going to raise some pretty good kids who are then going to raise good grandkids, right? So, I really appreciate what you guys do, not only for other couples, but as an example that you're leading in your own life.
Thank you so much for saying that. Yeah, like, are you gonna cry or Daryl? You're making my husband cry. Wow, that's never happened before.
No, but it did really hit me that the part of you saying that you see that we're raising good children, because really I have no idea.
Yeah, like we think we're like the worst parents.
But we hope that we are compared to what we're seeing out there in the world. And so, yeah, when you said that, I appreciate that very much. That's why I was like, I stayed silent a bit, because I was like, am I really? But then I was able to receive it and be like, okay,
yeah. And that's why it was so important for us to make this podcast about relationships, because obviously it's not just our relationship, but the one with our kids, who are going to go into their own relationship later on. And their kids are going to go into another relationship, so we want all families to have this, so that we can, grow strong kids to have strong and healthy relationships. And they don't have to, if they do get married young, that they don't have to wait until their second, third marriage to have a healthy relationship. Because I was married before, so I know what that is like, and I don't want that for my kids. Like, I want their first relationship to be the one that is healthy and beautiful, and have a best friend like we do, because it seems like you and your wife are like besties too. So I love that.
Yeah, I'm very blessed. I had my starter kit that was awful. It's like, getting a package from IKEA and having 15,000 things with no manual to put it together. So from that, I learned what I don't want.
Yeah.
So this time around, I know exactly what I do want. And I know how precious and rare it is, that I cherish it and respect it enough to not destroy it. So, I am extremely blessed. God brought us together and gave us this life that we're building, to go through the rest of our life together. When you find someone who is your friend, your best friend, your partner, your lover, your communicator, your supporter, your champion, and also the one that you will allow to kick you in the ass when needed, that is, that is a rarity that is to be cherished. And it is something that if you find early on, recognize how rare it is, and do whatever you can to value it and keep it going, and not ever take it for granted. Complacency will kill every relationship.
Yeah.
Yes, it will.
Yeah. Man, Daryl, your wisdom has come through on this episode. It's like, you have no idea how happy we are, how grateful we are for you to just, come and share, be vulnerable about your own stuff, and, just everything. It was just like, this was so much fun. Did you have fun?
Oh, I loved it, and I appreciate you letting me do this with you. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
Of
so
course.
we're gonna go ahead and end this episode right here. And then we're gonna go ahead and move on to Prospera. But before we do, Daryl, do you wanna let everybody know what you have going on, where they can find you?
No, right now, I appreciate the opportunity to do that. God has me, my business, kind of in a pause. I still do my Warrior Spirit podcast every week, and I still air that out. He's actually got it now on radio and TV. And for a guy who
Nice.
never even wanted to be a podcaster, that's pretty special for me. But for my business stuff, he's kind of got me in a pause for a moment. So I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm out there on social, on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, all that. So you can find me if you want to, tune in. But my coaching stuff has been kind of put aside. He's got me focused on more public speaking and just still honoring the gift that he gave me with this microphone. So
And you're doing an
Beautiful.
amazing job.
Yes, you are.
Trust that. So
thank
you
you.
so much for being on this podcast. And everybody, we will see you at Prospera on our show over there.
See you there. All right.
How are you feeling?
I love it.